The Comforts. Written and read by Mary Teresa. Copyright 2016. Warning, and I mean it. This story contains references to drug use and lewd sexual behavior. You have been warned. Again. Mr. Comfort was a person of comfort. His shoes were sensible, with good arch supports. His socks, garters in fact, absorbed sweat and odor. His pants hung as gracefully as pants can hang from a portly belly when mass-produced in some offshore factory, instead of here, like when Mr. Comfort was a kid. His home was comfortable too. Each of the 3 bedrooms had an occupant, and his family was evenly gendered. The boy was 8, the girl 7, too young to be of much trouble yet. Mrs. Comfort worked part-time, and the kitchen was neither bare nor messy. Nothing ever seemed to happen to them that didn't also happen to their neighbors, relatives, and people on afternoon talk shows. It would be nice if the Comforts partook in some swapping of spouses or snorting of coke every Friday when the kids went to Grandma's. Since you've already invested some time here, I feel bound to tell you a story. Mr. Comfort was an evidence clerk in the Mountie detachment. As it was in a bedroom community, hardly much of anything ever happened. He was refiling evidence after trial in preparation for its destruction. The 3rd bag was open. Inside it were dozens of rocks of crack cocaine, some as big as his fist. Without a moment's hesitation or thought, and almost as if he was comfortable doing this, Mr. Comfort quickly checked to ensure he was alone, and just as quickly pocketed several handfuls. He knew the street value. He felt a buzz, thought it was because of his act, not because of the residue of coke on his fingers. Several $1,000s of rock sat in his uniform pocket. He reached into that pocket periodically, even habitually. Throughout the remainder of his shift, he felt a buzz each and every time. When supper was over, the kids in bed, and the table cleared, Mr. Comfort placed his pile on it and watched Mrs. Comfort wipe down the counters. The whiff of bleach tickled his nose. "Where did that come from?" Mrs. Comfort asked. She knew what it was, as her part-time job was as an exotic dancer at Lou's. It is a well-known fact that Lou is the go-to guy for all manners of pleasure. Mr. Comfort told her of the opened bag. "I resealed it," he assured her, then pointed out, "It'll be destroyed by the weekend." She was not assured. Her face betrayed her doubt. Mr. Comfort said with some impatience, "Mother, I know the routine." A moment of silence ensued as Mrs. Comfort pondered her husband's knowledge. "You can hardly sell it." Mr. Comfort chuckled in agreement. She joined in. The only extraordinary thing about them were Mrs. Comfort's magnificent breasts. Her face was rather plain. Then again, the customers at Lou's weren't looking at her face. Mr. Comfort was just as plain. Worse, he had that frumpy look that comes with wearing mass-produced pants and arch supports. He had no street cred. Mrs. Comfort brought the rocks to Lou's on Friday. Mr. Comfort never missed her show. Sometimes She danced for him alone in one of those back rooms. This is why the kids spent Friday nights and most of Saturday at Grandma's. Perhaps Mr. Comfort was aroused watching men watch his woman open her legs. Lou is happy, Mrs. Comfort said. Her face was flushed slightly. They were in one of those back rooms. She threw the wad of money on the floor as though it was inconsequential, and carefully placed 3 sizable rocks on the table, thoughtfully arrayed in a feng shui kind of way. Mrs. Comfort's pipe was not a new one. Neither was Mr. Comfort's.